Happy World Financial Planning Day. I know everyone has a day these days, so I thought we would take this opportunity to talk about financial planning. And that got me thinking, we're one of the few firms, I feel like, that do real comprehensive financial planning. A lot of people think they have a financial plan simply because they did some time value money calculations with their advisor, and yes, they're not going to run out of money and everything's good. But there's so much more to financial planning than just that. There's the risk management side of financial planning. There's the estate planning side of financial planning. There's tax side, which most financial advisors are going to tell you to consult with your tax advisor. And your tax advisor is going to try to reduce the amount of taxes you're paying today, but maybe not necessarily think long term. It really takes a team, which is what we've developed here at Wiser, to work with you. So how come this is not how the industry works? How come most financial advisory firms are not fee only? That's a good question. Only 4% of firms operate the way that Wise Wealth Management does, in that we are not selling you product. So every firm's going to have some type of conflict of interest. It's possible to avoid complete conflict of interest, but there are some compensation structures that definitely are in your face on not being your best interest. And one of those is getting paid from product sales, or receiving commissions from, or trailing fees from products that are being sold to you. So why is the world like this so much? Well, historically, financial advisors have always been compensated through mutual funds, through very common, you'll hear, you don't have to pay me anything. The fund pays me. Well, you're paying the fund a pretty hefty fee, which then does indeed pay the advisor and the advisor's employer. There's also regulatory environments. So we have two different standards in financial services. We have fiduciary standard, which is what we operate under, which in that we have to work in the best interest of the client, and we have to disclose any conflicts of interest in our disclosures, which are given to our clients on an annual basis. But there's also suitability. So this is how you get sold annuities. Because quite honestly, I don't think any real fiduciary could sell an annuity. They're not in your best interest, hardly ever. There's always another way to do it without having to buy the annuity. So annuities have to be suitable, kind of like a mortgage. Have to be suitable for the mortgage. Just because you qualify for a $5 million mortgage doesn't mean you should take out a $5 million mortgage. So you have to understand the person that you're talking to or getting advice from, are they actually working in your best interest, or are they selling you products that you're suitable for? Other thing too is client demand and perception. So if you think about someone who has come into money, they go sit down with an advisor from Joe Schmo brokerage firm. Every small town has one. They sit down, they talk to that person. They're asking advice for that specific $200,000, $500,000, $2 million that they now have in front of them. They're not really thinking or demanding that their whole entire picture be looked at and be wholly financially sound. So sometimes it's what you perceive. You perceive that person in your church or on your son's baseball team to be a financial advisor of all things, and really they're just pushing high commission products. Education, background, and credentials are very important. We want all of our young advisors coming up to Wiser to have the CFP designation. That's very important. Missy and Shauna are CFPs, and Shauna's also a CPA. These are all very important, but you have to understand in the world in which they use them in. So a certified financial planner takes a fiduciary oath, but then if they go work for a Merrill or a Wells Fargo or a Edward Jones, those are not fiduciary firms. They don't accept fiduciary responsibility as a firm. So the client is saying, or the advisor is saying, I've signed this fiduciary oath. I'm a certified financial planner. But the employer is also saying, we're not taking any fiduciary responsibility. So the fiduciary doesn't end up on the CFP because he works for a much larger employer. So there's a little smoke and mirrors there. The CFP board does this because they want to collect revenue and fees for the CFP designation. And they need the mass number of people in order to do that. So a CFP in a real fiduciary environment makes sense. A CFP working for commission and selling product, that's a conflict. That's a contradiction, right? It shouldn't be there. Industry tradition and culture is another one I wrote down because, look, we all have seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street and all those old movies, right? It's it's kind of what we're born into selling. You know, I talked to someone recently back in the 80s. They were dialing people at a boiler room in New York, and they would get somebody on the phone out of 100 phone calls, and they'd pass them to their manager to try to sell them the stock, right? That's how our industry was born. And unfortunately, it's kind of a dark past is how I see it, but that's how all this got started. And so we have a lot of traditions in our industry that still cling to that, when honestly, it's really not in anyone's best interest to do that. And I would say also too, banks tend to be very transactional. You're their favorite person as long as you're making that transaction, right? So we've gotten away from the banking environment for financial planning, which has been very healthy. Regulatory changes have been helping a little bit. The Department of Labor issued a fiduciary standard. They had to roll back part of it, but in the end, it's helped advisors understand that, hey, I'm going to roll this 401k money into my IRA that you're going to manage, but the financial advisor has to now disclose that your fees are going to be way bigger doing it this way versus just rolling it into your new 401k at your new employer. So those are all disclosures that we're supposed to be showing now, but quite honestly, do people read any of that? Even if me verbalizing it, I don't know that people fully understand it. So we have a ways to go on that front. And then obviously marketing. I mean, we have very large stadiums made of, sponsored by wealth management firms, and they have very big visibility. And the reality is that maybe those aren't the best institutions to be doing business with when it comes to your financial future. So being that this is World Financial Day, what's the rest of the world doing? Well, in contrast to the US, we're way behind, because I have a list here of many countries. The United Kingdom, for one, in 2013, that's 11 years ago at this point, banned all commission sales being paid out to financial advisors. In the UK, you can work on an hourly basis, a flat fee, or an assets under management basis. Exactly how we do that here at Wiser Wealth. It's called the Retail Distribution Review Regulation. And again, it was put in place in 2013. Australia has something almost identical. You can't work for a commission there. Everything has to be very transparent. They had an additional regulation put in place that says every 2 years your contract with your advisor expires and it has to be re-signed. So that forces you to have the money conversation with your advisor every 2 years. The Netherlands did the same thing. Denmark, South Africa, Finland, Germany, Sweden. These are all countries that have decided that getting products paying the advisor is a really bad thing. It's not good for the public. Here in the US, we're the polar opposite. We keep having regulations that support insurance sales. Insurance lobbyists are probably one of the best paid lobbyists out there outside of maybe defense. So we have a system in place here that your financial advisor has to walk away from. I walked away from all this in 2001 because I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. This is not the best way to start something. And I created what you now see as Wiser Wealth Management. It took 24 years to get here. But here we are, and we're doing the right thing. And that's very important. And there's hundreds and hundreds of other financial advisors just like me. You have to look for them a little harder than you would a box at the end of the street. You know, some of these brokerage firms are popping up like pharmacies in the South and car washes. They're everywhere, but they don't have that many locations because they're super successful. They have many locations because they make a lot of money selling a lot of product to people who just don't know the difference. So anyway, happy World Financial Planning Day. On a positive note, Wiser Wealth Management's here to offer you unbiased financial advice. Please reach out if we can be of any assistance. Have a great day.